Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books. Today we're talking about Marvel replacing Peter Parker. Yep, it looks like they may be doing it. They're starting to hint at it. Of course, Peter Parker is a white male, so, there's only so long he can actually remain Spider-Man. 60 years as Spider-Man notwithstanding. Let's get into the article coming from Bleeding Fool. Before we do, please do subscribe to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up when you like it. It's a huge help. Sincerely, I really appreciate it. Marvel Comics changes Spider-Man origin and teases Peter Parker retiring. Yep, it's about time he retired, right? It may just be another publicity stunt, but either way, this approach has become alienating and shouldn't be financed by the audience. Inside the Magic brings up the following news, and that's a separate website. But now, in the upcoming Amazing Fantasy 1000, it seems that Parker may be ready to hang up his Spidey suit once and for all. In one of the preview panels for the issue, listed below, drawn by Daredevil artist Marco Checchetto, Spider-Man is in deep thought. We come into the scene while he is lamenting the death of Uncle Ben, which took place quite a while ago, which Marvel fans know was the spark behind the character's origin story. Quote, I get busy doing the right thing, saving lives, fighting crime, being a relentless force for good, Spider-Man says, continuing with, I believe if I can just do enough, it'll be enough. He goes on to reflect on how he met an amazing woman, though we're not told if it's Gwen Stacy or Mary Jane Watson or someone else, and sacrificed a great deal in his relationship to continue being New York City's friendly neighborhood superhero. Well, he has to be who he is. The 6-panel preview concludes with Spider-Man contemplating retirement, saying, I just don't know how much longer I can take it. Yeah, he's contemplating. Don't you miss the days when Marvel would end every sentence with an exclamation point? I do. That used to be like dynamic, interesting, good. And purists definitely shouldn't have to take this insult to the intellect in an era with political correctness, which the story doubtless builds upon. Even more dismaying is how both Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane are obscured. An ambiguous statement like the above does nothing to alleviate the notion they're minimizing the significance of these two notable ladies in Spidey's life. One who sadly fell victim to the Green Goblin in 1973, and the other whom Peter Parker later married, but because of Joe Quesada, a mostly politically correct editor-in-chief who wasn't qualified for the job according to the author, and I have to agree, the marriage was dissolved. Yeah, this was a big deal when Spider-Man got married. Very big deal. Comicbook.com tells which writers and artists are working on this special. Are Spider-Man's web-slinging days behind him? Peter Parker has been suiting up as the Spider-Man for 60 years, with Marvel celebrating Spider-Man's anniversary with the release of Amazing Fantasy 1000, a list of visionary creators such as Neil Gaiman, Dan Slott, Jim Cheung, Jonathan Hickman, and more will contribute to the oversized one-shot which explores Spider-Man's past and future that promises to leave an impact on his mythos. One of those stories will find Spider-Man contemplating retirement to someone off the page after recounting his many failures and personal tragedies. Spider-Man would meet an amazing woman who's either Gwen Stacy or Mary Jane Watson, probably. It's hard to tell which character Spider-Man is referring to, but he does acknowledge that he screwed things up with her. And on top of that, Aunt May getting sick, his best friend Harry Osborn turning on him, and the hits just keep on coming. No matter how many positive steps forward Spider-Man takes, he takes even more negative steps back. Not easy being Spider-Man. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Is Peter Parker Spider-Man, or perhaps this new gay Spider-Man would just be a great replacement for him? Who knows? I mean, maybe so. Let me know what you think. And this blurs the difference between fiction and reality, refusing to stress whether this obsession with depicting Peter boomeranging back to pauper and bachelor is a healthy one. Yet it certainly undermined Spidey storytelling for many years, and nobody was willing to protest. As for the writers, it's bad news if Slott's permitted to continue associations with a title he was instrumental in ruining for years, and Gaiman's decidedly not good news either, nor for that matter is Hickman, whose approach to X-Men was pretentious, and many have cheated Substack subscribers. Yeah, may have cheated them. There's a whole other story about Hickman and his Substack. We'll talk about that in a minute. Out of an indie comic he was allegedly producing, Marvel unfortunately has lost direction, and with these people continuing to run the company, no celebration of Spidey can be guaranteed to deliver. Why not just put Jim Salicrup back as editor for Spider-Man? Or the Spider-Man group. That's what he used to do. Update. Under him, you had Todd McFarlane for Spider-Man #1, if you like that one. Update, and in this Newsarama article about the new addition to the Spider-Verse in a franchise that's already plagued with too many variations on the original premise, more bad news turns up. Speaking of which, Edge of Spider-Man #5 marks the finale of the limited series, which is set to also bring the end of the Spider-Verse as we know it, leading into the launch of a new Spider-Man title from writer Dan Slott and artist Mark Bagley. Slott also contributes a story to Edge of the Spider-Verse #5 alongside co-writer J.M. DeMatteis and artist Bob McDonald as they introduced Hunter Spider, who is basically Kraven the Hunter with spider powers. Everybody needs spider powers. Have they done Wolverine with spider powers yet? Let me know in the comments below. That's my favorite Marvel character, Wolverine. Some of the villains who will appear in these new planned titles include Morlun and Shathra. Well, they're running out of names apparently, who were conceived by J. Michael Straczynski and were pretty weakly written to boot, serving as little more than a means of getting from point A to point B in a 2001 to 2007 run that's now considered largely irrelevant, with good reason. And if Slott's the writer bringing them back now, no need to assume there'll be any improvement in their renditions. Again, the Spidey legacy's long been reduced to rubble, no thanks to the machinations of some of the worst business choices ever made in comicdom. I mean, Spider-Man is gold. He produces gold. Spider-Man's known throughout the world for multiple generations. Would you go and change who Spider-Man is? Well, they've already sort of done that, but would you get rid of Peter Parker in the main continuity? I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments below if they would actually do that. So what's the story with Substack Comics Grift, also from Bleeding Fool? What happened to Jonathan Hickman's 3W, 3M? Okay, this is an interesting story. I wrote about Substack throwing tons of money at comic creators over a year ago. And what they were going to do was basically have Substack be a place that independent comic creators could come, could post their content. Looked like it would be great for cross-promoting other comics creators. Name people like Jonathan Hickman and a few others were paid very well. They were paid a guaranteed salary by Substack just to go and say that they're going to produce some comics. And conceptually, you know, it's interesting because more distribution for creators and publishers for comics, that's a great thing. You know, and Substack, you know, it's popular and they have money to burn. So if they can pay creators, you know, why not? Pay creators, have them produce stuff. The problem is, like anyone else, comic book creators, if you don't have some accountability, might not produce everything, you know, when promised, as promised, just like anybody else. You know, you have to have some accountability, and that's where sometimes it does help to have a publisher. It does help to have an editor, because they'll create accountability for the production of something and for the market. But now Substack, I mean, technically they're not the publisher, but they're the ones writing checks. So this is maybe something Substack will need to talk to them about. So here, let's get into the article. This time last year, only a few months after Diamond Comic Distributors had halted shipments of comics during the pandemic, a small group of mainstream creators stunned the industry with an announcement they'd be moving to Substack. Suddenly, several heavy hitters announced they were ditching their contracts at Marvel and DC. and heading to the newest digital platform for creatives, Substack. Creators like James Tinian IV, Chip Zdarsky, Jonathan Hickman, Al Ewing, Ram V, Tinny Howard, and artists like Mike Del Mundo and Mike Huddleston migrated to Substack to make a comfortable salary and quite possible a very comfortable one without having a boss. And what was great too is they were able to own their own creations. But now that Substack's grant money has dried up, so Substack had some type of a deal where they were paying them, I think, a lot of money for a year. And then after a year, they would share in revenues from their subscriptions on Substack. We're learning that John Hickman has seemingly abandoned his subscribers, I hope not, along with his plans for 3 Worlds, 3 Moons. Fans subscribe, that's what that is? Okay, 3 Worlds, 3 Moons. Fans subscribe to his Substack for $8 a month or $80 a year, but there was a founding member tier that ran $250, that's a lot, which was supposed to come with bonuses and extras, such as physical books. It turned out after a full year, those founding members have received nothing. And this will just show you, like, the Comicsgate guys that have delivered, they've done a lot. Because a lot of those guys had not published before. So to take on the obligation to produce comics when you're paid in advance for it, as someone who hasn't published them before, I have published a lot of them before, but for other people who haven't published them before, they don't fully even understand what they're agreeing to do, but they're promising to do it, and there have been so many guys delivering their books as promised, and that's, fantastic. And even if it's a little bit late, they keep their promise, they deliver their books, and they deliver them to a high standard because you don't want to disappoint any customer. So it's amazing that they've delivered, but something is not right with this Substack model. While well-known comic pros like Scott Snyder and Jeff Lemire were successfully gathering an audience, Hickman's project was perhaps the most ambitious of all the comic creations. Also, watch out for that. When people get too ambitious about what they say they're going to do, the more ambitious it is, the harder it is to deliver. I mean, ambitious is exciting, but he says he was creating a full universe and had recruited top-tier talent to help him flesh out the project, but now his backers are calling it a grift. That isn't good. According to Wes Darty of Thinking Comics, great YouTube channel, they've spent the past year only creating the universe with virtually no artwork completed. Those founding members who packed up the top tier have received nothing. Now, I have created a universe of comic characters. I have done a lot in comics publishing. I have worked with a number of professional comics creators and indie creators. I worked with Jim Shooter on a number of titles that we were creating to launch as a universe in the early 2000s. Was not launched. But for it to take 6 months is a short amount of time to develop characters. A year is a reasonable amount of time, but they should have work to show. They really should, because it does take time to work all this stuff out. But a year is, and to not have anything to show really is not good. Here's a breakdown of the perks that these founding members were supposed to get. This lists a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. Without dates. I mean, with funny language next to it and their own language they develop, which is great. All those little touches actually are great. It's you make it unique to you if you're going to create a universe, but they have to deliver some stuff. After a full year, not one of these promises has been fulfilled. Wow, a signed hardcover? A deluxe signed hardcover of a 180 plus page print graphic novel? See, the thing is, when you promise stuff, consumers want to get it. And it's not that they don't understand if stuff is delayed. They do. The problem is if you don't deliver as promised, even if it's not when promised, you don't deliver, people feel stupid and nobody likes to feel stupid. So you have to communicate. Substack had originally committed to these comic creators for a full year with funding, allowing the creators to build a narrative and their consumer base, but all that time and treasure appears to have been squandered by Hickman. I hope not. Many of the subscribers are reportedly upset, being censored, and even banned off Substack for expressing their displeasure, calling it a smoke and mirrors marketing trick and grift. That is not good. Nobody should be being banned, no matter what they're saying. And if you don't like what they're saying and you want to ban them, at least you have to give them their money back. 3 Worlds, 3 Moons was reported to be the most successful comic book on Substack, but it's not released any ongoing stories, and the creators are acknowledging the problems and making excuses for the delays. Nobody wants to hear excuses for delays. We all have personal tragedies. God only knows. But you have to show work. You have to show work. But perhaps the worst part is that the creative team reportedly was planning on having material to sell at comic conventions while still delivering nothing to their subscribers. That's another thing. That is horrific. You can't go to a comic convention and sell stuff when not delivering to other people. You can't do that. Maybe that's why Hickman unexpectedly canceled his trip for C2E2 at the last minute. Yeah, that is true. Oh my gosh. After so many comic book fans and readers holding independent crowdfunded comics to account for tardy delivery, and some even ghosting their backers, it's disappointing when respected professionals demonstrate this sort of egregious behavior towards their biggest fans. You know, the thing of it is you could be a respected professional, but sometimes things take a very long time to get done, and then personal issues do come up. But you have to communicate with people, and you always have to give people the opportunity to get their money back, whether it's crowdfunded or the Substack or whatever it is. And the best creators always do that. So why Hickman would do this, I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of misunderstanding. I really don't know the whole story that well, but if you know anything about it, let me know what you think in the comments below, or update me and fill me in. I always really appreciate that. And also let me know if you think it's time that Peter Parker is replaced. Why keep having Peter Parker as Spider-Man? You have all sorts of other Spider-Verse opportunities. I kind of think it's a good idea to keep Peter Parker as Spider-Man. He's literally Marvel's most iconic hero with the actual best, most intelligent and coherent origin story. It's got, with great power comes great responsibility. I mean, there's nothing more you could want from a superhero than Peter Parker for me. All right, love to know what you think. Be sure to be subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications and give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. It's a huge help to the channel. And I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.